Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to HSC Ho Chi Minh. How are you feeling today? Anybody still awake with me? Please raise your hand. Okay, we are still having like quite a few sleepy people in the house, so I just want to make sure that I know you well before we start the panel, okay? We have a stellar lineup here. Your company speaks for yourself already, so I will cut down the introduction. We're going to go straight into the topic, but I want to make sure that we're going to be addressing the questions and the interest from the target audience here. Okay, so I would like to do a quick survey for everyone in the house. I want to see a show of hands of those people coming from traditional institutions. Traditional, please, traditional. Okay, 1, 2, 3. How about crypto people, crypto native? Okay, guys, please don't be shy, all right? Raise your hands. Loud and clear. Okay, more people. How about people from traditional moving into crypto? Anyone? Okay, 2. What about the rest? Anyone from crypto moving back to traditional? Or AI? Okay, so we have a very diverse audience in today, and we have some institutional people in the house. And I want us to be helpful, resourceful in a way that we just don't want to give them the buzzwords. You guys have been in 2,800 panels about institutional adoption. So I would like to know today what exactly it's like right now and what it doesn't look like, for a lot of people in the room, because a lot of them are coming here, of course, to learn about what drives them for more adoption, and of course, maybe for collaboration with institutions. So I would like to kickstart the first round of questions with the gentlemen and the ladies here by asking you the very first thing. What is the biggest misunderstanding about institutional adoption from your personal experience and from your own geographic locations that you're working with? Can we start with Vadim? Because you're one of the hosts today, right? So give us some spicy answer. What do you think?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for introduction. Very good question. And if we talk about traditional institutions in crypto or crypto institutions, of course, my first Bitcoin was in 2017. I bought it, and I was like, wow, it's the next thing. I want to use it. I want everyone to use it. So I was literally like dreaming about one day Visa or MasterCard, to adopt it. Now we live in the reality where it's like happening, and it's like not a surprise to the people anymore. So can we say that the crypto is still the same like isolated bubble as before? No, I think that actually it's already everywhere. People are using stable coins. People are buying Bitcoin as investments. And if we talk about institutions, how they look at this, since that time, I knew many people who are from the big companies, large asset managers, even in the hard, jurisdictions like China, when it's very hard to do something like left or right. You have very straightforward things, and they bought it like by themselves, but they cannot do because you have this shareholder agreement, you have these mandates. You cannot simply step out. But now, with the time being with the clear regulations, right, which is happening, that's the most important thing.
Okay, so they think that hoarding assets in crypto is part of the adoption. That's what you mean?
Of course.
Right. Okay, so that's a very interesting point. And please, everyone, please also be very brief with your question. I would apologize in advance if I cut you off, because we want the energy to be, bouncing back and forth instead of everyone's just trying to pitch about their own company, okay? So next up, maybe Will, what do you have for us?
Look, given your exhortation to tell the truth, the reality is when talking to institutions, chances are they don't care. No matter how good your idea is, they don't care because their priority is on what's making them money today. 2, in terms of how you influence institutions, institutions tend to be led by their insecurities rather than their convictions. Saying, here is the future, is infinitely less powerful than the risk of you being left behind. And that's the dynamic, the inertia that exists within institutions of protecting their existing revenue base, of protecting their existing stakeholders, makes them loath to make changes. There's very few companies that will risk iPod to launch iPhone.
Okay, so they still care more about the bottom line security. That's what I heard. Right. How about you, Ben?
No, I think there's been a lot that's happened over the last like 6 to 8 months, right? Which is sometimes these things like happen gradually, then suddenly, right? So I think how I like to like think about it is in three verticals, right? One is like the investments use cases out in the world that are using the technology. 2 is the payments use cases, and then 3 is just like the pure technology use cases. And if you just choose one type of like institutional vertical, like the banks, you'll see that there's actually a huge amount of exploration that's already happening in each of those 3. So I won't name the specific bank, right? But like as a specific example in the UAE, where we also have a licensed entity, there's like some of the large banks there that have already issued their own stablecoins. I mean, even in Hong Kong, there's already been stablecoin issuance by a JV bank. And then in addition, like these banks are also looking at tokenized deposits, so tokenizing the actual commercial bank money using blockchain technology, right? It's not obviously like a token use case. And then on the investment use cases, what you've seen is the tokenization of securities from some of these banks. Where what's been leading on that side of things though is the U.S. government bonds, right? You don't see as much of the tokenization of securities or bonds from too many sovereigns outside of the U.S. I mean, there is a little bit, but I think there's a lot going on.
Right.
I think it'll be even more accelerated next year.
Is there any misunderstanding about adoption? Or have you seen any kind of cases where people think that they're adopting digital asset, but they actually haven't?
I mean, in some cases, like I think where the industry is going, at least for some of the institutions, like I think compared to some of us like 8 years ago, who are like you lead with blockchain, right, and then you follow with the application value. Luckily, things are changing. Where I think what we've seen from some of these use cases, people are just leading with the value proposition rather than it being on blockchain or tokenized.
Okay, so talking about value proposition, and obviously we are coming down to stablecoin, which is like the latest buzzword, I would say. And Tether is definitely like one of the best person in the house to talk about actual adoption. Let's say for some of these institutions, when they issue or when they buy stablecoins or when they engage with stablecoins, what exactly are some of the adoption use cases that you have seen, Queenie? Rather than just like, okay, I'm touching stablecoins, so this is basically how far I can adopt crypto. What do you think about the real use cases?
I think one of the misunderstanding about institutional adoption is actually the institutions doesn't touch stablecoin or digital asset with first hand. So in the ideal world, when people talk about adoption, in my imagination, for example, the bank, the financial institution would need to touch it, would need to offer digital assets to their users, would need to integrate digital assets into the core banking system. But it's not happening like that yet. So normally they would, for example, if we're talking about cross-border payment use cases with stablecoin, for institutions or traditional companies, they still utilizing the third-party vendors or crypto companies to actually do the work with crypto or digital assets or stablecoin, rather than touching it themselves. For example, there's a use case that we have seen in regulated market. The bank, they said, okay, let's do something with digital asset, with stablecoin. I do want to offer crypto card with stablecoin top up to the users. However, I don't want to touch stablecoin. So what they're doing is that they still appear in the press release that, okay, they offer foreigners coming to the country paying with the USDT crypto card, but they're not touching crypto at all. So the crypto card issuers still settle directly with Visa, and Visa still settle fiat with the bank. So the reality is there is something that we still need to figure out. But I think the opportunity is there, the acceleration is there, that we will see it very soon.
Right. Okay, so I think we are touching on a very interesting topic about like whether the institutions are going to touch crypto firsthand, right? So we were talking about second hand or third hand. We are definitely having some experts in the house who are hoping to, make that route easier for institutions. So maybe to you, Vadim, and to Ross, since you have been, let's say, sitting at this convergence of traditional and digital assets. One is from traditional background, and the other is from the other side, right? I would love to hear both of your opinions on how you think that you are looking to bridge this sort of challenge that Queenie has just mentioned for now. And is it getting easier? Is it getting easier for institutions to actually do this nowadays?
So actually, also circling back to your first question, because it's a very good link here, the biggest problem of the adoption for the institutions is use cases, lack of use cases. And if you look at the majority of the jurisdictions, which is not many, who allow to issue stablecoins right now, which is, in my opinion, only two, which is UAE and Hong Kong, all of them, they force local issuers who have a license to use it inside of their territories, countries, which is so against of the natural usage of the stablecoins and the currencies, which should be cross-border. So it's like very strange, kind of like, probably they're trying to do something very like, safe and things like that, and like we will do something very gradually. But actually, if you really want to let institutions to use cryptocurrencies,
Right.
which can be licensed or, let's say, more like crypto native, like decentralized and something
Sure.
like that, you still need to find real cross-border use cases.
Of course. Interesting. Will, I definitely want to hear more about from Dragon Capital, like specific use cases, how you guys decided to be one of the first fund in Vietnam to actually get down this path.
Well, how far we're down the path is a question.
Okay,
Whether
how
we
far?
Virtue signals another.
That's a very interesting angle. I would love to hear that.
No, look, for us, it's, in some ways, it's existential. Just for context, so Dragon, we're the oldest and largest equity fund manager in Vietnam.
Right.
Been around 32 years. For us, there's two elements. One is, as an investor, our mandate is to deliver investable Vietnam to the world. To the extent that investment opportunities in Vietnam begin to emerge via digital rails rather than conventional rails, we need to be able to address those opportunities and add those opportunities to our portfolios. So that's about our investment mandate. If Vingroup today decided to tokenize rather than issue equity, we need to be able to invest in that, as an example. The counterpoint to that is fundraising. As many people here will know, more Vietnamese, infinitely more amount of value in Vietnam is held in stable coins than is held in funds. Why is that? Is because dollar deposits in Vietnam do not receive interest. So as a household, it is more effective to loop that, to earn 4 to 5%, than zero sitting in a bank. What does that mean for fundraising? Does that mean that we should be fundraising against stable coins? Should we be accepting stable coins, converting it into fiat to invest in the market as we do conventionally? But is there a generation of products for us that are out there? And this is where, to what Vadim was saying, I think for us, the delta in both cases is going to come down to governance. We're ultimately in a regulated space. Our product is heavily regulated. We cannot arbitrarily say, we're going to invest in digital assets without having the regulatory approval to do that. Nor can we fundraise, especially for retail, without the governance being in place for us to be able to do that.
Right.
But we
Okay.
see it, but our hands are tied until the regulatory pathway enables us to move forward.
Okay. So I hear a lot of these initiatives, and we are also getting like very close to Vietnamese markets. And I think that definitely Ben is also like one of the better ones in the house who have real like grounded experiences of how to actually, let's say join this game as a regulated player. So I would love to hear more from your angle and maybe specifically your story, like for Hashkey with this licensing and how you're actually like looking at Vietnam as one of your key markets.
Sure. No, it's exciting, and maybe some of you know, some of you don't know, but HashQ is one of the key partners with Kayaks, which is the one of the companies that's working on the regulated licenses here in Vietnam. So if you looked at the news like a few months ago, right, it's essentially a JV between OKX, Hashkey, VP Bank Securities. So we're really highly excited about that, and I think it's pretty interesting because from Hashkey's perspective, we're the only company in the entire world that's licensed in each of Asia's international financial centers. And we were the first in many of those markets. We were the first in Hong Kong to offer a trading platform to retail users through a mobile experience, licensed. In Singapore, we also one of the first companies to get licensed there under the original kind of the DBT licenses there. Japan, I think when we got our license in Japan, it was the same cohort as Coinbase. So I think in Vietnam, I made this point last year when I came to Ho Chi Minh for, I think it was Conviction last year, which is like people look at regulations sometimes, they're like, oh man, it's kind of annoying. Like, you know, we can't withdraw crypto anymore. We can't do this, we can't do that. And that, of course, like some of these regulations come with frictions, right? But from our experience, like the really interesting, exciting thing about all of this is like what happens after you have like this foundation where some of these corporates, it doesn't have to be banks. I mean, we talk a lot about banks and asset managers in this conversation, right? But sometimes like seeing there being like a regulatory framework unlocks some ideas or use cases from corporates, right? These could just be traditional corporates who are importer exporters. They're doing huge amounts of cross-border trade, and they want to somehow, you know, leverage innovation in, you know, cross-border payments through stablecoins or whatever, right?
Okay.
So I think what we saw in Hong Kong was after you had these regulations, people get licensed, a lot of these other cool things started happening, right? One of which was, you know, the recent launch of, you know, Hong Kong's first licensed stablecoin issuer. Obviously, there's some restrictions in that, as you mentioned, but that's, to me, I think that's the most exciting thing about Vietnam here is like we're really in phase one, where, you know, the licenses come online, get the exchanges get online and get licensed, but then after that, I think, you know, it gives a little bit more of a foundation for more use cases from, you know, from the market here, which I think would be exciting.
Yeah. So I think HashKey's story is definitely exemplary, and it's also like very extraordinary as well, I think, with what you guys are doing. Now, I am putting my practical hat with Vietnam. Like, let's say 80% of our economy is like driven by SMEs. I don't think the licensing game is for everybody, right? And I mean, a lot of the builders in the house, let's say even Web3 or AI, I mean, they understand the importance, but it's not always, the ball is not always in their court. Let's say if they want to join this game as a regulated player. So let's say if we talk about institutional adoption and how they can collaborate with the institutions, I would love to hear from some of your opinions on how you think they will be able to work with you or with your partners, or is there any way at all, you know, that they can actually be part of this game? Because we are not addressing 10% or 20% top of the market. We are talking about the whole ecosystem here. So maybe Will, if you would like to share this first, and then I would love to ask Queenie as well about this. And Vadim, feel free to add on if you want.
I think one key element, SMEs in Vietnam are different from, say, in Korea. Korea has one of the largest SME sectors in the world after Germany. Those SMEs provide supply chain to the chaebols, right? Samsung Heavy builds a ship, all the components came from Korean companies, Korean SMEs. That's not the case in Vietnam. SME businesses represent mom and pop, from the jewelry stores to the pharmacies to small trading companies. The pressure on SMEs right now is not from competitive pressure, it's from the government formalizing the economy. As you may know, Vietnam is in a period of intense reform with a vision of infrastructure spending elevating elevating our economy, sorry. The government needs tax revenue to be able to pay for that. And so bringing the economy out of the gray into the taxable space is a priority. And what that has seen over the past year has been a tremendous crackdown on SMEs, starting in places like the jewelry sector, where most of the mom and pop jewelry stores have been put out of business. So for SMEs, the core use case is not, do I buy and sell my jewelry? It's, do I buy and sell my jewelry with a stable coin in a way that protects me, that gives me that tax visibility that the government is going to require going forward, which allows me to preserve my business but formalize it in a way that suits the regulatory agenda. It's not solving a liquidity problem, it's solving a liquidity visibility problem. And that's a way of bringing people in to say, hey, otherwise your business is at risk. That's something that makes it extremely relevant quickly because it reflects the reality of the challenges that business owners are facing.
I definitely think that the market confidence come from collaboration among like different players. So through the conversations that we have with financial institutions here in Vietnam, obviously they want to explore use cases that they can do with digital assets and stablecoin. However, they don't know how to do it and what kind of technology or what players, what companies that they need to partner with in order to make it happen. So normally, as a stablecoin issuer, we have the privilege of working with a lot of different types of partners, from the infrastructure providers to wallet to custodian providers, etc. So normally we hear the story and then we would like to suggest them like other partners that they can work with in order to make it happen. So I definitely think that there's a room for financial institutions and startup SME to work closely together to make it happen. One case study that I'd like to mention to continue the story that were mentioned. So we saw same story happening in Taiwan. There are a lot of exporters like produce the product and then ship it and then export to other countries like India, Latin America, like Brazil. And then the importer in those countries, because they are trade deficit countries, so it's hard for them to open a USD bank account or access dollars. So normally they will need to rely on the counterparties in the financial hub like in Hong Kong, Singapore, or Dubai, and then pay the markup fee for the exporters. And then, whereas the exporter in those countries like Vietnam, Taiwan, because they are publicly listed companies or the regulations are not allowed them to accept digital asset yet. So they still need to accept fiat in order to clear like custom. They still need to file taxes. They still need to complete financial obligations. So what happened is that we have few options or solutions in the market now that allow the importers paying with stablecoin, whereas the counterparties in financial hub issue the standby LC denominated in USD.
Right.
And then once the order is completed, they can release the LC through a bank, whereas the exporter will still receive the fiat. So I think that when the market's opening up with the huge opportunity for SMEs in Vietnam, I think that is something that we can definitely look into and make it happen here.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Vadim.
absolutely agree with Queenie actually, and it's a very good point because as an SME, it's very long learning curve for you to adopt the huge financial supply chain. I mean, of the whole things, right? So what actually is needed, and I'm advising one company right now, payment company, who is creating the rails, and I think that we, after countless times of brainstorming, found the very right way. It should be government-approved rails, then it should be large institution with all these SMEs already onboarded, and they create a structure for them to use it without even knowing it's a blockchain, stable coins, whatever. They just need to make business. They just want to sell something. They just want to make money for living. They don't want to know it's like if it's a regulated stable coin or it's like the thing which is like whatever, it's coming from somewhere. They just want to have their living. If they are exporting goods, they need to have trade finance. How can they do it by themselves? It's like $10,000 company or $100,000 company. I mean, for them it's like impossible even to understand it, right? So actually, it's still needed a huge marketplaces or institutions who actually help to create the rails and then let the SMEs to adopt it. So that's my vision for that, and not only for Vietnam but for the other countries.
Okay, interesting. So I heard trade finance. I heard export, import, cross-border payment. So those were some of the use cases that we see real-world impact. Let's say we talk about real adoption. So the next question, I think maybe back to Ben and Will. Obviously, you guys have been, although, I mean, Will, you said that how far we have done this, but I think we just started. So I think definitely 1 foot in the market is already good enough. But I would love to hear more from you. I mean, apart from all of the the buzz was about RWA, tokenization, stable coins. What are the next products that you think would really make the difference with this institutional adoption in your market or in Vietnam? I think you can just definitely, Ben, you can speak about Hong Kong, etc. as well. But I think we are so full of tokenization in RWA. So I just want to make sure that you guys are giving your real opinion, what's going to really make a difference and what's going to be really adopted with institutions.
Yeah. So there's I personally still think that there's a lot of these. There's like if you look back in time to like the 2018, like 2017 era of Web3, there was still a lot of these like decentralized commercial or like decentralized business models that were actually quite interesting, right? But the technology was either not mature or the market wasn't ready for it, and a lot of these things basically failed, right? In my opinion, a lot of those things were still were too early. But I still think that there's an opportunity in the future. I mean, what's old is new again, right? Is essentially like I still think that there's still an opportunity for outside of all the exciting things that we've seen in financial services, like payments, like tokenized securities, like RWA, et cetera. Besides that, I still think that there are some opportunities to decentralize certain types of business models to either allow more people to collaborate to do something at a larger scale or to solve some other problem, right? So I think whether or not these are applications in things like agriculture or commodities, still a question mark. Whether or not these are applications in, that can kind of change some of the existing like Web 2 like shared economy models. I think it's still a question mark there. But I still think there's a lot of pretty cool potential applications of Web3 outside of financial services that were like, a lot of us had this idealism in 2018, didn't really get going, but I still think there's a shot there.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting that we are going beyond the financial industry to talk about Web3 use cases. So Will, are you still like bullish, still top bullish about financial services, or is there anything that you think might be compelling with digital asset?
Look, I'm an ex-securitization banker. That idealism that people feel in Web3 today is what we felt in the securitization markets in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we created the global financial crisis, for which I remain very sorry, but the intent was there. But look, for me, move past the buzzwords by creating a new buzzword. Rather than calling it just RWA, real world asset, change the A into applicability. Yeah. You've got to be solving a real problem.
Right.
That's the thing. And the problem otherwise is you end up with theater. People will talk a lot of buzzwords and they'll put out white papers and nothing will change, right? For a Vietnam use case right now, there is real world applicability in paying for all of the infrastructure that the government wants to build. There's a $1.3 trillion funding, or $1.3 trillion vision for building rails, roads, airports, ports in Vietnam. How does that get paid for? At the moment, credit in Vietnam comes from banks, and really only from banks. What do banks have? Banks have limits on how much they can lend per sector. They have how much they can lend to an individual borrower, and they hit those caps. What Vietnam truly lacks right now is an alternative source of credit. Where do we see demand in stable coins or demand in crypto space in Vietnam is often more on debt-like rather than equity-like instruments. Mm-hmm. People want strong, stable returns.
Right.
If you can use digital rails to link government spending into projects like trains through a coin that reaches a household and gives them a return to that with safety and custody, that is a winning proposition. And that's a proposition that needs solving today because the banks are already hitting their caps. And the government has put itself very out publicly to commit to build these things, but needs the money to do so. That's the problem that we see coalescing, whether it's here today or whether it's the work with the VIFC, is making that money clear, is where in Vietnam there's a massive use case that has the ability to broadly bring in not only the banks, but also the users of the credit, whether it's the building companies, whether it's the suppliers of the industrial goods.
Sure.
It's very broad.
Okay. Yeah, I think for those who are new to Vietnam, of course, he mentioned about this public infrastructure spending. Obviously, it's also like massive in Vietnam these days. So if we were talking about the real cross-border collaboration, I think this is definitely one of the use cases that we would like to see very soon, I think, with digital asset adoption. So we are coming very close to the end of the panel. So I would like to invite each of you to share with us maybe 1 or 2 initiatives that you are working on that might be helpful to everybody or somebody here. Again, not sales pitch. We love to, I mean, we know all of your companies already. We know you're doing great things. But is there anything that you are planning that is exciting, that is interesting for people to come and talk to you and to collaborate with you after this? Maybe can we start with Vadim?
Yeah, certainly. I'm hosting everyone here today, so
Conference,
welcome to
more events.
Yeah. So just please come to talk to me about mostly about investments. That's our major part,
Okay.
and media conferences that we also have. But just very interesting conversation. I really love it. So just to add one more, my personal kind of kind of understanding which happened recently with me. Again, talking about the same payment company who I'm advising. So since 2017, when my first Bitcoin, I was always thinking that crypto will change finance and it will be the new finance. But what we are actually coming to today, and I see that the big countries, especially like US and China and all other big countries, they won't let replace their systems. 100% no. So that's now I'm fully understand it. I have to take it. And then how you create use cases of other non-government digital currencies or things, that's another thing. But mBridge initiatives or other, like if we're talking about payments, or other initiatives which are like between central banks that will be always the streams which is dominating, which are moving trillions of trillions of trillions.
Right.
And then on top of it, how you create something branch out of these like a stream, another smaller stream or things like that, could be some smaller private companies or maybe state-owned enterprise VC or joint venture, with some private companies. But what I just want to say that my understanding was really kind of enlightened me that okay, we still have to really understand what is current government policy, follow it fully, and then after that maybe creatively create something else. So yeah.
Okay, very more inclusive model for government, private sector, and public sector, right, with digital asset. Okay, next up, Will.
Ultimately, my core product, if I have a product, is Vietnam. That's what we do at Dragon.
Right.
And I think for all of you who are visiting Vietnam for the first time, please come back, but also take away with you an impression of how much growth there is in this country. And that growth needs suppliers of capital from abroad.
Okay.
And the conversation I'd love to have with any of you is, I don't have the solution, but if you have someone who will benefit from exposure to this country's growth, let's talk and let's figure out how we put together the different pieces in a way that makes sense. It could be as simple as us launching classes of our funds in USDT.
Right. Okay.
We have them in dollars, we have them in euros, we have them in sterling. Why not USDT? Do you have someone who would be a buyer of that because they want exposure to Vietnam?
Okay.
That's the conversation that excites me.
Okay, so those interested in exposure to Vietnam market, also please come and talk to Will. What about you, Ben?
I like that. Subscribe in USDT, right? It's,
Okay, everybody is
I just-
advocating for USDT. Okay.
No. That's no, or a stablecoin. No, but to be honest, right? I'm joking, but like there's been use cases, where, for cross-borders subscription into an asset, like into a fund product, when you're able to use stablecoin for that cross-border subscription payment,
Right.
it actually makes a huge difference because there's one person there's a client on this side, and then there's the issuer on the other side, right? Settlement speed is critical, right? So anyway, it is beneficial. But to your specific question, right? I think one thing that would be helpful for everyone in the room to pay attention to is in Vietnam, just like talking about Vietnam specifically, is I do think that there are going to be more and more interesting opportunities that arise out of the regulated exchanges here, because if you look at the under under the resolutions that started the regulated exchanges here, not only can they do crypto, right? They do crypto asset trading, but there's also, back to your point earlier, there is the ability for the exchanges to also offer RWAs on those platforms, right? So if you're interested in that space, I mean, you hear every day like RWA, it makes you feel like it's a buzzword, but there are if there are cool examples of assets or revenue streams that you think can be that you have access to and that you can be a part of the origination, I think this year and then next year you'll start to actually see the real local distribution platforms for those start to go live.
Okay. To be more specific, with RWA, are you talking about distribution? Are you talking about issuing? Are you talking about redemption? What exactly can people work with you guys?
Yeah, I think yeah. So I think if you look at Hashkey side, I was just talking about the the CAC's local Vietnam side. But if you look at where Hashkey has actually been quite innovative is given the license that we have in Hong Kong, it actually allows us to both provide crypto asset trading and have a subscription platform for tokenized financial products. So currently, it's not in that. Let's say in the Hong Kong market, it's not RWAs per se. It's mostly things like tokenized money market funds, like structured notes, and those are interesting because it gives the standard crypto investor profile, the standard crypto investor access to another asset class to buy from.
Okay, so let's say cross-border, also international exposure for the assets.
Yeah, but also for example, what we've done is where there's some projects we're working on where the issuer is in Europe or in the United States, and because we're using stablecoin for that subscription, it makes the whole subscription process faster, right? So I think as we go forward, there's a lot of initiatives that we have in Southeast Asia where we're also looking to bring in great assets from other countries in Southeast Asia and allow the investors in our distribution network in Hong Kong, in Singapore, and in Dubai to be able to get access to these products.
Okay, definitely. Okay, so last but not least, Queenie, what else can you give us?
Yeah, as the stablecoin issuer, I think what matters most to us is the distribution network. So we work really hard to unlock new distribution network and also new use cases. So also like Ben has mentioned about the cost, the effective, the time, the speed that stablecoin can bring into the table in terms of cross-border payment. We actually experienced it with a lot of partners and we want to expand that. For example, it took us almost a year in order to convince Hyundai Motors, which is a very big and traditional company, to experiment and did the POC for cross-border payment from US to Mexico with stablecoin. So rather than costing them 3 to 5 hours and higher cost for that transactions, it actually came down to 7 minutes. And then it's the excellent use case we definitely want to explore more with the traditional companies and financial institutions. Besides from that, with all the experience that we have with stablecoin, US-backed, dollar-backed stablecoin, we want to actually transfer that knowledge and experience to local stablecoin. A lot of people think that, if I launch a local stablecoin, is it going to compete with USDT? The answer is no. Actually, I think the best use case for a local stablecoin is cross-border payment. Instead of swapping USDT to fiat, they can actually swap from USDT to a local stablecoin on blockchain instantly, 24/7. And in order for that to happen, we need to create a liquidity pool between USDT and a local stablecoin. And this is something that we are looking to support any initiative in the local market. Same thing for local gold token, commodity-backed token as well, because we also have the top one commodity-backed token, Tether Gold, in the market. And then there are a lot of initiatives in Southeast Asia, in Asia in general, to launch the local gold-backed tokens because the regulations require them to have the gold reserve sitting in the local markets. So we're also looking to support that initiative as well. And then we also have with all the experience like that, we also launched the tokenization platform that can help any partners, any companies to tokenize any real-world assets from commodities to money market funds, ETFs, etc. So that's something that you're looking to explore. Yeah, happy to have the conversation as well.
I think it's going to be a very exciting initiative if you guys are actually supporting the local stablecoin, the local currency stablecoin, Because actually, of course, one of the latest, I would say, movements that we see is more of the microcurrencies in Asia. When we think about the institutional adoption and where regulations have become, like a must for a lot of the players in the market. So we are looking at different products and different markets where they would actually have these microcurrencies, stablecoin, and that's actually going to be supporting, the micro businesses as well as the localized markets in different, in different parts of Asia. So again, to wrap things up, we should come to Vadim for more meaningful gatherings like this. Asset management exposure to global market. Will, anything with Vietnam exposure to Vietnam market, please come to talk to Will. Ben, obviously, he covers the whole world. So if you want to do tokenization of anything and exposure to all the markets, then Ben's the one to go to. And obviously, Queenie, with the initiative on local gold-backed tokens as well as local currencies. And you can come talk to me, Nicole, as well. I'm the founder of APAC DAO. So anything with community activation and go-to-market in Asia, you can come talk to me. Okay, so that wraps things up for our panel today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been a pleasure hosting you here. And thanks, everyone, for joining us for the panel.